you see these people sort of like appropriating an experience that they have no idea of. Which reminds me of like how films in the Philippines depicting queer people, maybe not recently, but like we've seen films like Dolphy's films, Roderick Paulate's films, like, like how they depict queer people. In terms of representation, do you think those were helpful? Those were necessary? Or do you feel the same way na they set us back? Like queer people didn't exactly benefit from the type of representation that these works offered to us.
You know what? That's really interesting because like the context of like Dolphy and Roderick Paulate and even Vice Ganda, no, like even
Mm,
if that was only maybe a decade or two ago,
mm,
is so different from the context in which Emilia Perez is released, right? So Roderick Paulate and Dolphy really grew up in a time wherein queer people were essentially side characters,
mm,
and they portrayed queer people for the first time on screen, even if they were, not necessarily like part of the community, or at least
mm,
publicly so, and essentially they allowed queer people to essentially have some form of agency. They weren't just window dressing.
mm.
And there's a really brilliant thesis around this called Bakla and the Silver Screen. So I feel like I might be flattening that because that's a like 300-page
Mm,
dissertation. But essentially, like those are one of the first movies that actually center these kinds of stories, right?
mm,
Whether now when we're looking at it from our perspectives, right, it's really problematic. But at the same time, before, for you to have such a project like that greenlit in the first place, it was almost impossible.